Hi, and welcome to Enchantment of Eternities, my pitch for a Star Trek show. So this video is for how I think a new Star Trek show should be. So I've been planning on making this video for almost a year now. However, this video takes on new connotations now because originally I was expecting to make this video in a time where we had no idea when or if there would ever be another Star Trek television show. But just last week it was announced there will be a new Star Trek show released in January of 2017, which kind of changes the tone of this video. But before I get into what I would realistically expect to see of this confirmed Star Trek series, let me get into some pie in the sky. If I were king of the world, what would the Star Trek series look like ideas? And I had originally wanted to make this video to talk about an idea I had before Enterprise was announced, and I was trying to guess what the next Star Trek series would be, and it turns out they went in a totally different direction than what I was hoping for. And this is no longer the idea I want because TV has since taken a turn towards serialization. And this idea is the opposite of that, but it's still cool. And that's the idea of having a Star Trek anthology series, kind of like The Outer Limits or The Twilight Zone, where each episode has different characters, a different story taking place in a different location, and even maybe a different time period. Maybe this speaks to me, what I love about Star Trek, more than some other Star Trek fans that prefer the format of a familiar starship crew who we follow week to week as they explore space, which is what we got with Enterprise. But frankly, I'm a bit tired of that format. I thought an anthology series would be an amazing way to explore the Star Trek universe. Picture this: one week we're following a starship during the Next Generation time period, having a dispute with the Romulans. Next episode, we're on a Klingon ship following a group of Klingons. In the following week, we're back to the original series movie era following Captain Sulu on the Excelsior. And the week after that, we're following a group of temporal agents in the 29th century. And the week after that, we're following what the Vidians in the Delta Quadrant are up to. I think this would be amazing, and I would have liked this 1,000 times better than Enterprise. They could have even had reoccurring characters and locations, like if they did an episode with the starship crew that people liked, they could bring them back for more episodes, and they could even have some characters who were in past episodes intersect and meet each other. The options could be limitless. We could go an entire episode without seeing a single human being. Or visit aliens who only appeared in one episode previously in the 5 Star Trek series, and we wondered whatever happened to them. Personally, I think it would have been a great way to explore the Star Trek universe more and go more in depth with the lore that people love and are interested in. But unfortunately, the powers that be seem more interested in running away from the lore instead of embracing it, like Voyager set itself on the other side of the galaxy. Enterprise set 100 years in the past, and the reboots, worst of all, actually erased all the history and created an alternate timeline. I know the writers thinking, they don't want to have to deal with being consistent with all that came before them, and also want to appeal more to a wider audience, and don't want people who aren't as familiar with Star Trek to feel alienated by not getting the references. Personally, I think that's bullshit, because historically Star Trek is always most popular when they bring back aliens and characters Star Trek fans are familiar with and love, which is why Voyager had to bring back the Borg to boost their ratings, or why Enterprise abandoned their focus on new aliens like the Suliban and focused more on familiar ones like the Vulcans, the Andorians, and the Klingons instead, and why the reboots brought Khan back. Look, the way I see it, if stories are good, the characters are interesting, and the information of what's going on is easy to grasp, even if you don't fully understand the backstories, people will watch it and it will just get more popular that way. As an example, the two most popular and biggest box office success of the Star Trek movies, not counting the reboots, because it's not really Star Trek, so set that aside for the moment, is The Voyage Home and First Contact. The Voyage Home took place directly after The Search for Spock and was kind of a sequel to it that began with Kirk and crew on a stolen Klingon ship that they got in that film, so people who didn't see those two previous films would be totally lost, but it didn't matter. Tons of people who hadn't seen those films went and saw it because the film was so good and it stood up on its own. It didn't matter that they were a little lost at first. And First Contact made a lot of references to Picard's abduction by the Borg in The Best of Both Worlds, and yet it still managed to appeal to wider audiences, and people who had no idea who the Borg were before watching this movie still found them interesting and scary. So the point is, make it good first, and it doesn't matter if the audience feels a bit lost in revisiting and exploring the lore of the universe of Star Trek will only make fans happier and increase the viewership. It's pointless to keep introducing new aliens that are just secondhand knockoffs of ones we already know and love. Just like the Kazon were just knockoffs of the Klingons, and the Suliban were just knockoffs of the Romulans. And I thought the anthology idea would have been the best way to explore this. But as I said, this idea I had back in the early 2000s, and anthology series aren't really in anymore, and the big thing now is serialized shows with shorter seasons, and I think there's a lot to be explored there, as Star Trek really never have done this before. Sure, there were parts of Deep Space Nine that were serialized, and Enterprise started getting more serialized, particularly in its third season, but we have never really seen a Star Trek show with a shorter season where each episode has a much higher production value and the entire series makes up one long continuous story. Like shows such as Breaking Bad, Game of Thrones, The Walking Dead, and many other popular modern shows have proven this format works. And I think it would be great to see a Star Trek show like that, which is kind of why I was really hoping they would create another Star Trek show in present times, and why I'm really excited that they have announced that they will do just that. Now, at first, I was really concerned that they entrusted the reboot team with the new Star Trek series. However, I still think it could be good because of the modern format I described. But the big question to my mind was, what time period are they going to set this new show in? I would be most interested in seeing the Next Generation era or beyond. However, it seems more likely it will be set in the original series era because it's the reboot team. In fact, it seems likely it will be set in the reboot parallel universe, which I'm not all too thrilled about since I'm not a fan of the reboots. However, I do see the upside in setting it during the original series era, since we only had the one show that explored that time period, and we had 3 shows that explored the Next Generation time period. And I could even see some benefits to it being set in the reboot universe, because it may be a way to flesh out that universe to make it more realistic, because one of the biggest issues I have with the reboots is that it comes off as fake and chaotic, and the world it presents doesn't really seem realistic or tangible. So if they have a TV series that explored it in greater detail, it might actually help me to appreciate the reboots more. However, in the announcement they made, they did say that we would get an all-new crew. So those that claim it would just continue the adventures of Kirk and crew from the reboots must have missed that part. And I don't know why they think a bunch of movie stars like Chris Pine would suddenly do television again. So it will be a new crew, so the question comes in, how can they make it good? Other than the serialized shorter seasons, better quality method I mentioned, what I think they need to do is try a different format rather than simply following the adventures of one starship exploring the galaxy. I heard someone on the net suggest that they could do a Game of Thrones style of storytelling where they are following several different storylines in different locations at the same time, and that sounds absolutely awesome. Imagine if we did get a crew of a starship, but at the same time we followed a Klingon ship and their crew, and at the same time a space station, and then maybe a colony, and also a strange alien world, and somehow these storylines were all connected and told in the same story in a serialized fashion. That sounds absolutely amazing. I would love for them to do something like that. It would be similar to my anthology idea, but a more modern, serialized version of that. At the very least, they need to be brave and do a new format and not just make the same mistakes that Enterprise did by creating a crew of cardboard cutouts that were just rip-offs of the original series characters. I want a starship captain who's a black female Vulcan, and I want her first officer to be a lesbian, and I want some fat guy eating donuts to be the chief engineer. I don't know. I just really want them to shake things up rather than the 1960s version of the stereotypical white male hero that Enterprise unfortunately tried to revert back to. But it's not only the crew I want them to shake up. As I said, I want them to shake up the whole format. Don't just focus on one Starfleet crew like the 5 previous shows did. Try something new and innovative. Really go where no Star Trek series has gone before. Do that, and I won't care what time period or fake parallel universe they set the show in. I'll be hooked. So that's it for my pitch for a new Star Trek show. Be sure to check out my channel for many more Star Trek videos. At the moment, I'm doing episode reviews as requested by my viewers, so if there's any episode from any of the 5 Star Trek series you would like for me to review, just leave a comment below with the episode you'd like me to review, and I'll endeavor to do so. But please, 1 episode request per person, and make sure you subscribe so you can keep up with all that. And thanks a lot for watching.